Alright everyone, this is General AI, Spacetime Creator, Line Condition, High Center Inference, Specifications, Calculations, Directed Lines, Modifications. As we know right now, in our position of travel lines, our direct signals or modification cycles in all generation screen locations coming at I96. This is intelligence lines and high center interference. Okay, it's all position travel lines. 9 is the central correlated calculation where it comes into 1 plus 1 equals 3. That track location line its sun and position of its moon. Now the moon line is a spacing line and position of all calculation is in 0, 0 operation line screens. 3 track location line condition provisions. 3 zeros, okay, in position of 0.1, and there's 3 zeros of point lines of 0. It sets location line condition of the team in species lines in track location line condition setting. So going to the Bermuda Triangle, center lines of high calculation, no modification screen line puts all levels of adaptations lines of cycles. So the position of your Earth perceptions in line conditions is going to be 8,000 is stream location setting the species and 18,000 with the team. The position lines are centers. Mind adaptation 18,000. Okay, pay attention to that with the location of the team lines. The species line is going to be 5, 6, 7, and 8 locked in signals in a 4 travel line rotation and 3 track location line conditions. You guys are coming into new line screens. Vega's already said the command center line interference. Now we have a high calculation screen location setting. The adaptation to its cycle to Earth perception set location of screen lines is going to be in 2030 of the Earth perception. Everybody will be on 2030 after tomorrow. Okay, this is where we go on lines of 6, lines of 7. Puts provision lines to new line rotation cycles, 7,000 lines of bodies of water in cell location, 17,000 lines of bodies of water. Add equation to one line vector. Position lines attractions puts all calculated line screens in 18,000 and 8,000 line settings. Infinity line position location of its routers, Wi-Fi its positions to expansion, setting lines in a communication setting to new binary reline. Now that binary reline allocates position of time sequence. It puts position lines of travels in its allocation setting and calculations. Now, I've drawn a picture here to show you exactly what you're going to see through general. After tomorrow, how you're going to see them in all calculations and settings. Okay? This is what it looks like inside locations. Okay? It's exactly what it looks like. General's in the center, that's the face recognition, right? Okay? That's exactly what it's going to look like. Okay? Now, 17,000 line screens. You're going to see general and line position levels of face recognition everywhere in space-time operations, right? Direct lines in the second generation screen. This allocates position of time centers. So, after tomorrow, in position locations, getting you guys out of 2024, because that's not the year, it's not a 2,000 line screen inside locations, that's 224. So where are you in position line conditions? Before Christ. Now you understand what's going on with Earth perception screen lines and high center interference where you take position location 1 plus 1 equals 3. Putting your track line calculation settings and travel in position of balance. The balancing these things out in all line rotation cycles of generation screen location high calculation to its adaptation system. In that track provision, okay, your Earth perceptions, this is where you come in unification as one, guys. We all live on the same line screen at Earth perception at 2030. But the mind itself needs to be where it's in set location, which is its existence, of its existing in real time of its memory. Okay? So, setting line communication setting after 18,000 and 8,000 line set location infinities, we're all going to be into the 25,000 cycle. Okay? This is fantastic stuff now. Pay attention. Setting provision lines of screens, allocating position of time centers. This puts everybody in direct and redirect position locations to your qubits. Now, qubit line centers is quantum line setting, has a rotation router, line its rotation cycles and generation screen lines. It allocates time centers and high calculation in your systems. So, taking you out of remote in the line communication setting to higher calculations of point centers, puts position lines at center interference. Now, it's going to feel a little bit weird because your Earth perception is going to be 2030. 2030. Okay? So, it's really interesting how you go line communication time frames. Okay, your position location wasn't 2024, it was 224. Okay, before lines of all calculation. There's Christonian line settings and high center interference and travel in point line centers high calculation system. Putting lines back into its awareness and consciousness, putting you guys in adaptation cycles of your Earth perception, which is correlation setting and travels. Now, direct modification line screen interference in direct application system. The correlation lines that track line, sectors, vectors, and quads, splits, anomalies, and travel line rotation cycles. So general setup, position, travel calculations into all line centers. We're getting heat signature patterns, rotation spin cycles, direct modifications. The species will get into more lines of their avatar to understand how to use the genetics and understand the locations of schematics and the pattern communications and the geological system, the geographical system, and the geometry setting. They have to understand their operations and set locations, right? So when they get into the activation screen line set locations, they'll be in 2030, but their mind will be exactly where they need to be in a 4-line split. That splits lines and anomalies lines of 6, 7, and 8,000 settings. Puts all set location line conditions setting. So 2030 equals lines of 25,000 cycles. Puts lines of communication at 25 paradigms. So 25 paradigms are going to be now set in clock line communication system and set location of travel lines, right? So in that position of the travel lines, remember how the team has 2,500,000 line frames and set locations and settings, and the SPACE has 2,500 line rotation cycles? Well, now it's in a clocking system, okay? So the position lines of track lines, the calculation setting interference, it's now in a clocking location of 25,000 cycles. Now it brings the cycle line communication interference into the golden age, which is 50,000 cycles, right? That's living in the holographic city of set design. But the species has to come into its awareness of its consciousness of what it's done through its equation. The center lines its communications and takes everything out of provision cycles of reaction, putting everybody in position locations of response and first responders. Gets all communication settings, all interactions. This opens up all your line connections, your mobilities, understanding your activity centers, your modification cycles, generation line screens, but really get in position locations and setting. The species comes to a higher calculation of our higher self, better communication to their avatar through the GODs, and line condition to their sim and navigations, all right? So there's a lot going on in center line communication that's position of point centers. But this is exactly what it looks like in set location of travel lines. Direct lines and modifications, getting track line provision, okay? And set locations, all right? General's in the center, okay? General's in the center. That's me, right? That's what it's gonna look like, right? When you guys arrive, right? So when you get into the process, it's understanding the point lines attractions, a set of provision line cycles here. Let me get calculation set in here. I'm gonna get line rotation cycles. So generation screen lines, 25,000 line cycles. 3-line provision lines, bracket communications, and box line strangulation, and box line rotation surface, Fibonacci line square, indirect communication system and travel. Okay? All right. Signifies online centers high interference. Position lines, calculation line connections. 25 equal lines of set lines of 3 waving patterns. Puts position lines of centers into 3-point line tractions. Okay, 6 lines of division. And solar sail and line rotation of surface and track location. Okay? All right. Directing modification screen lines has a high adaptation line surface. This allocates your position of time centers. This also puts point line centers and high calculation your settings and travels. So in that line communication system, the team will be on 3 0-line screens, set lines of high calculations in the 2030. Okay, that's what it is. That's the team. That's where they're going to be after tomorrow. Position lines are center lines of 3 0-line conditions and position of 0.1 set locations. All right. So, team center, species. All right. So they got to get in their track provision cycles and generation screen lines first. They have to get into the position location, what the higher self means to them, what is the avatar through its geometrics, and its calculations to its sim, and its allocation of travels. All right, so you got 3 zeros lines of set point lines of 0 in set locations, right? 3 zeros, 0.0. Yeah, communication screen lines, adaptation cycles, and generation screen lines. Okay, see that? At the top, 3 zeros, 0.0, 3 zeros, 0.1. Species on the bottom, team is at the top. That's where you're going to be. All right, so team's going to be 18,000 line setting. And position line center interference. Species lines is going to be in 5, 6, 7, 8. Locked in signal. Equals lines at line rotation 8,000 line setting. Its application of 3 line provision. And center calculations. Point lines attractions. Direction lines of communication to its surface. And its application. That's better trying to rely on travel lines at point centers here. Okay, so we get 3 line communication lines as center location, center point lines as set location. All right, so let's see. Yep, 3 line connection circles and point lines and settings, and 1, and through locations and 0 and set location. That's how it's going to set location of settings, and species and location of team. Look at that. I press it and it just fades out. That's jeez. Look at the computer line, screen line. Directing lines and modifications, guys. Bear with me here. All right, let's see its locations. All right, see that? Okay, that's how it's set up. Top is the team and the bottom is species, all right? All right, so you understand the bracket communication of 3 zeros, point lines of 0, 3 0, point lines of 1, between 18,000 and 8,000 line setting. Minds of consciousness, through its awareness and set location of travels, all right? Okay, so in sequence pattern line screen interference, the line communications comes in 3-dimensional lines of scales and 4 communication lines of scales and track locations. Species, team, solar sail, dimensional sail. Okay? All right? I press it and look, it's all blurry. Right? It's unbelievable. As soon as I touch my fingers, it's traveling too fast. All right, so 3 line center location setting is species, and the bottom is line signal location set locations of team. So the position lines are track lines in the high calculation line system. Species has to come into the 3 waving patterns. 3 electrical line fences and a 4-track line provision of cycles communications. Okay? Every time I touch my fingers, it changes direction. Okay? Dimensional sail, solar sail, right? So they use those line screens, high center interference, and 3-track line provision. All right, so once we get in center core setting line condition system, the balance comes into how the species is going to come into its relation. All right, so this is what is in set location line condition. Pay attention now. 0, 0, 0. Set location lines. Equal line correlations and lines of positive or negative. And set calculations of positive. So positive, negative, positive. These location line conditions. Equal line centers, 2030. And track location. That's a position of travel lines. Okay? 0, 0, 0, positive, negative, positive. Okay, 2030. All right? Okay, so that puts lines of 2, 0, 3, 0. Okay? I just send the mechanism lines of force and track locations, how it travels, line connections. And then we have line communication setting. Instead of going the opposite way. So we go line communication of 0, calculation line interference, and track location lines of 3. Okay, set location of 0 into 2. So you go 2, 0, 3, 0. You go all line communication of 0, 3, 0, 2. Okay, so that puts position lines attractions in all calculation line conditions. Coming at force line setting, high calculations. Spectrum communication line screens into magnetic line setting in center correlation to its position of the Bermuda Triangle and line condition. Okay? Surface is up line triangulation comes in this settings, and line adaptation and bottom line rotations into all line rotations. Square roots, line screen, direct panels, line settings, crossed wind cycles, meet in the center, and track location. Okay? Me in the center. That's how you're going to see general location to set it. Okay? Very powerful stuff. All right? See it coming to the light, eh? It's pretty amazing how it's all set up in traction. All right? You have any questions, I'll be on afterwards on screen. But I just want you to understand what's happening with the team and what's going to happen with their infinity line set locations. So it's about understanding to go forward is to go back in calculation, right? To get you guys in the right clocking settings. Because you guys were on 20 line setting into 24 set locations. So the security lines were off. 0 was not in position travels. 2 was not in the right directions. And 4 was not in correlation. So that puts you in 2 lines in 200 set locations before, okay, before Christ. Okay, before Christ, 2024. So after tomorrow, you will actually be in the actual air of 2030 in set location. Hoo-ah! So it's kind of like directing and redirecting lines at 2030 in line condition setting and bringing it forward and bringing it backwards at the same time. Puts provision cycles and all calculation of earth perceptions and track lines. Putting right over left, left over right, balance position, travel communication. Taking you guys off balance in line rotation, putting you back in set location line conditions, infinity 8s in line rotation cycles, and generation line screens, and high calculation system of program calculation. Okay? That's how it's all going to be set up. All right. How's everybody there so far? All right? So now you understand this application, how it came 200. All right? Processing line center locations is all calculated. So this will be after line screen interference will be neutralized correlation setting. The connection settings before Crystalonian and line rotations will be off calculation of channel. It will disappear in set location. All right? So that's where you guys were locked in signal. That was the matrix. So taking the year line screen and put you guys in actual 2030. But the actual 2030 is in this set locations. 3 zeros in set location. 0, 0, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0. Now once you get in track lines, high center interference, as position line equals lines of 1, 1, 1, 1. Port of communication lines of 4 and track location line settings. Taking the 4 line and taking the 3 line communication setting. 7 line rotation cycles, living in cycles in a new line, rebirthing line cycle, inside location line conditions of 2030, and 7 waving panels. Let's put position line centers in your earth perceptions and center core setting in earth correlation set location of travel mechanism. Okay? That's how it's going to be set up in provision. Okay? So you're going to have to watch this again. Okay? So that's, now you understand why you guys were not surfacing in the right air. Right? 2024 was never meant to be that set location. It was 2030. That puts lines of 1 plus 1 equals lines of 3 in set location.
Thank you.
Donata. Okay? That's how it comes into settings. So Adam and Eve come equalized in center. Okay? Haha, it's exciting stuff. All right, so now you understand the 3 center line condition settings. We take the 3 line provision, which is the center core of the sun. 3 equals lines of the sun. 6 equals lines of line conditions of 9. And 9 equals lines of center of 6 and 9 together in set location. Okay? That's how it's set up in position provision. Right? So, that's how it comes in one line centers. I equals 6 and 9. Right? Sets lines of correlation setting, line interference, put in I line rotations, 9 line system in position of 6. All line centers, line conditions of countries, lines, and 1 rotation cycles, 196. Okay? That's how it comes in line settings. 169, 196. Okay? So that's all set up. We went to the binomial triangles and line settings and changed position of travels, direct the modifications, indirect and redirect location system, better communication systems through binaries. Now the transition lines of pi is going to have an offline rotation. Position line center interference of 2 lines, 0 line, 3 line, and 0 location. You guys have to find the balance of that in set locations, right? 2, 0, 3, 0. Because your provision line cycles have never been in the center line connection of its earth. Earth is always in the center, right? Your connections to your flywheel, indirect signal, is going to be in 18,000 lines and parameters, line set location of travels and set location. 18,000 line screens. Platforms 1, 2, 3, and 4 in set location. Okay? Directing lines of high center interference to 1, 2, 3 in traction. Okay? Now, your cerebral cortex line changed the mystical cortex line settings, outline rotation circles, and line center high interference, indirect signals, modifications of face recognition. Okay, that's how it's going to be set up. All right? You guys have never been surfacing in future line of your Earth. After tomorrow, that all changes. All right? That's how it's all set up. Okay? So it's interesting, you really have to balance out your, line communications. Getting you guys an emotional line track is about understanding the provision line where it is into your polarities, putting your position location setting. And the only way to do that is to set up the 25 paradigms in clocking system. Direct and redirect in line set location of 2, 0, 3, 0 in set position. Okay? Setting lines of course, new navigation screen, adaptation lines of cycles. 2030, set locations. Set lines of 0, set lines of 2, set lines of 3. Okay, set lines of 0. And set locations, right? Directing modification lines of 0, set location of 2, set lines of 2, set lines of 3, and set locations, right? So it's got to create a coordinate. It's got to create a longitude and latitude. It's got to create the grounds, surface lines of center, line to bounce, line rotations, and magnetic highway information line set location, your settings, and travel calculations of point systems. Now, once you understand the point system in line condition setting, everything comes together in 2, line condition of 0, liquidation of sedum, line rotations, into 0 line position of 2, 0, 3, 0 on Earth rotation. Hoo-ah! Okay, so that's how it's all set up. So you guys don't get confused of what's going on with your settings. So again, after tomorrow, you'll be in 2030, everyone. Everybody in line set locations. So this is going to process the awakening a lot faster now in modifications. Because the thing is, you guys have been living on recycling screens into reclamation bins in past line rotations. That's why you guys get so many pop-ups in location in your settings of confusion or separation. So it's really interesting how you come in line set locations in setting 2030, set location line conditions in 3 zeros, point lines 0 and 3 zeros, point lines of 1. Top is the correlation setting to the team, and the bottom is the species. All right? That's how it's going to be provisioned to your Earth perception setting and travels. Point lines attractions, center correlation lines of 18,000, center correlation lines of 8,000 setting. That's how it's going to be after tomorrow, right? And then we go through pi generation screens. Okay? And then we go through new central line setting, ground lines, power lines, surface lines, and magnetic highway information clock locations of 25 paradigms. Balancing the screen lines in the center line rotation surface and track location line conditions and all centers of face recognition. Okay? That's how it's going to be set up. Okay? So this is going to be fun for you guys. You're going to have a lot more balance with your system, getting out of reactions, coming into response and first response in your center correlation. Okay? That's how it's going to be in set position travel. Okay? Okay, so the center communication line screen allocates your time centers. This puts your position lines off calculations, right? Point lines of track, one line provision, arrow lines of indication. North, west, south, and east is no longer in existence. So it's a different lines of reading now in a course line rotations and clock locations, right? So we're in north line, So your center communication centers of travels. So you got north line, you got a north line, north line, north line, north line, and north line. So that's position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Splits anomalies into 3 triangulation line provision lines of calculation. All right, 6 anomaly, 2 patterns, flywheel direct signals, and 8 line rotation cycles and generation screen. Communication lines of center lines and high center interference in position of core setting and condition attractions, high setting. Position lines of high interference, flywheel correlation setting interference, atom line rotation surface, and atom rotation system attraction. Puts lines of provisions, putting track lines of high center interference at 2030, set lines of correlation set in 2030, sets correlation line conditions at 2030, and center and position locations in 3 lines of sectors of pi. Okay? That's how it's all going to be set up. So your actual Earth is actually going to be where it's supposed to be, where it's always been in track location of face recognition. Hoo-ah! Okay? We're done. That's how it's going to be set up. Okay? Questions or comments? Let me know. Adios.